Hello, everyone, again. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Maya Saivanova. I am the author of Smarter Solopreneurs, the anti-hustle and think for yourself, I'd like to say, solopreneur newsletter that exists to make you think deeper and act bolder, which is why I'm here with Richard today. I will be your host during this live webinar on how solopreneurs go from surviving to thriving or from 5 to 6 figures and beyond. And I'm absolutely thrilled to present today's guest, Richard Millington. Richard is a thriving, for sure, community building consultant. This is, by the way, a whole other webinar right there about community building, but one thing at a time. So he's a thriving community building consultant who started out as a solopreneur and then found Feverbee, which is a data-driven consultancy behind successful communities at Apple, Meta, Google, Microsoft, SAP, Sephora. I couldn't remember them all, but like a bunch of Fortune 500 companies. And since launching Feverbee in 2008, Richard has helped over 300 organizations build thriving communities and has grown his business to multi-million dollar revenue. He's a prolific author too, by the way, of three industry-defining books and has spoken on over 50 global events. The first time we were trying to set up a call to meet, he was in Las Vegas, I believe, to speak again. So again, while Richard will be focusing today on how anyone can build a thriving consultancy, most of his success frameworks are applicable to any service-based solo business. So whether you are or want to be a coach or a copywriter or offer any other type of service, and especially to businesses, you will find all of these very, very interesting. Welcome, Richard, again.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you so much. So glad we got a chance to put this together.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I obviously told a little bit about you, but I would love to know more. I would love to know more about how this success story actually started and how it happened. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I've actually written a post somewhere about how I found my first clients, which goes into a lot more depth if someone wants to put that in chat. But for me, I got into online communities in the video gaming space. So I was very into playing games when I was young, the online gaming. And I quickly realized I wasn't so good at playing games, but I was very interested in all the communities that were growing up around all these games. And that was quite an exciting thing to be involved with. And then at university, I had to do a year out working for a marketing agency here in the UK. And then we had a client that wanted an online community, and they turned to me because no one else knew what it was back in like 2005, 6, 7, sometime around then. And that's when I kind of realized, like, oh, the gaming space is so far ahead in how you build communities of the business space that there's an opportunity here. So I was also lucky around that time to do an internship with Seth Godin, who some people might know as well. And that really helped me get my first clients. I launched a blog. And then, honestly, just from that practice of consistently blogging, consistently, I'd say showing up, attending events, gradually more and more clients came. And it just kind of grew from there, really. Like it's been such a fascinating adventure to be in one space that was popular, then lost its popularity, then came back and lost it. Like it's been such an interesting journey to be on. But now Feverbee's been around for 15 years or so. We've worked with most of the top brands, as you said. And I think we're in a position where in the tiny niche or niche, as they say in the USA, in the tiny niche we're in, a lot of people know who we are. So we're in this very comfortable space. And what I'm doing more now and is sharing lessons of how to build a consulting practice because after the layoffs the couple of years ago in the tech space, so many people ask me for advice, like how do I get clients? How do I write a proposal? And I thought about just like saying, no, I'm not going to help because a lot of these folks are going to be my competitors, right?
Mm.
Um, I instead decided to start a newsletter just to share what I've learned and just it was nice to write about something different. It's nice to really reflect upon the consulting side of the business as much as just the community side. And over the last couple of years, yeah, that's grown to I think 13,000 subscribers now, and that's where we're at.
Wow, that is that is just great. And I just love what you said that you are in a space that sort of has had its ups and downs. But it's not something that made you give up. or stop, and you sort of ride the waves and you make the best of the great moments, and then you find your way through the not so great moments. I think this is, I just wanted to flag this for solopreneurs specifically, because a lot of solopreneurs, just the type of education they're getting online, has to do with specific platforms or specific hacks or tools that are very time sensitive. And for a lot of them, I feel like once a platform dies away or once a certain trend dies away, a lot of them feel like their business is over. And that this is simply not true. You can always adapt, you can always change, and you can do it even faster and even easier when you have built it as a long-term strategic business right from the start, rather than look
I think
for sort of hacks. Yeah.
I think your strategy as a consultant shouldn't really
Mhm.
change that much. You know, like your tactics will have to evolve like with the time
Yeah.
and how you promote yourself, and that's changed so much over the years. It used to be short blog
Mm.
posts, and Google hated that it was attending
Yeah.
events, and now there's more of an AI trend that's coming in, and it's video more. So I think the strategy for me is to be
Mm.
one of the most trusted names in a space, and I know very specifically where that space is. There's probably 500 people that I want to trust me in my space. And if they do, then I've got more work than I can handle at any particular time. And I
Yeah.
think the people I've seen that come in and drop out, they don't spend enough time focusing on one sector or one niche. And they tend
Mm.
to jump from one niche to the next. And then they're starting from scratch over and over again because they don't have those relationships, they don't have the connections, they don't have the reputation. And the more you stay in one space, the more you become known in that space, the easier it is to connect with the people you want to chat with, to get invited to to speak at events. It's a flywheel of
Mm.
sorts where it just works and works. But if you jump to the next thing, then it doesn't work. And for me, the best thing that happened was social media came along and
Mm.
it everyone that's chasing the next big thing began chasing that. And I had this
Mm.
space, not to myself, but very few of us were like doing consulting in this space, which was great. And I think
Mm.
now that a lot of people are jumping to AI or something else to be consultants, that's like got to be the most competitive space to be in right now. I'm interested in what's left behind. Like I know someone that makes over $1 million a year doing consulting services for a legacy system. I won't say exactly, but the kind of system that you know how banks and airlines use really old systems. He just does
Mm.
like the maintenance and the work for that because there's no one else to go to.
Mm.
So I think it's important to stay very focused on one space.
Okay, this is great insight. Now, a lot of people want to but struggle to get into consulting specifically, and just as a whole in the service-based solopreneur businesses. Why do you think they have such a hard time, and how can they start or grow? And you already sort of scratched the surface there, but I'd love to hear more.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny you should ask that because I prepared some slides exactly for that
Oh,
question. But I've got
wow,
more
we are
ahead of that.
magic.
So let me just share my screen.
Yeah.
You can see my screen, right?
Yep.
So let's talk
All
about
you
why
on screen.
consultants struggle. I mean, I've talked
Mm.
about my journey a little, but like where you begin can be quite simple. Like I began with just a blog that looks, honestly, it's horrific. I'm so embarrassed that this is still out there somewhere on the web. But if you look at where you begin and where you end up, like you can see that you go on a journey. And so for me, the critical thing was building that trust, building that reputation. And then you get to a point where the more trust you have, the more your earnings increase. And you can see that quite steadily in the first five years where, you know, I shared the exact earnings compared to now where you can see what we've earned in the last 30 days or as of a couple of weeks ago.
Mm.
And the
Mm.
critical thing that drives growth is this. It's the number of people who believe you can solve their problems. That's like the critical metric that makes sense to me. Everything else feeds into that. And a lot of consultants spend so much time focusing on things that don't increase the trust. They focus on maybe awareness, which isn't irrelevant, but it's not the most
Mm.
important thing of trust. But the most critical thing is like, do you have the proof that you can do the work? Do you have the right positioning? Are you doing the right thing? And then you can think about, okay, what promotional activities do we have? And it all comes down to trust, and trust takes time. And
Mm.
there's lots of fly-by-night folks that come in, they set up their store, and they never really become a member of that community. They don't host events, they don't attend events. They try to expect instant results. And there's a
Mm.
journey that you have to go on over time. And so for me, when I do coaching for consultants, it varies a lot. But the journey very much is you begin with really understanding who your audience is. Like for me, I want to spend a lot of time researching who are we trying to reach. And when consultants struggle, it's very often because they begin with a set idea, or even when solopreneurs struggle, they begin with a set idea of what they want to sell, what they want to do, and they try and make all the research fit that instead of just listening. Instead of just listening. I spent a lot of time trying to sell community consultancy services to people that were struggling with their community. Like I thought like the best clients for me would be people that are struggling to build it. What I've learned is that the best clients for me are people that are doing it well because they're the people already investing and caring about it. Then they want to do it better. And so once you start responding to that, then you can start understanding what kind of niche you should select, selecting the right tiers, and doing all the other things that make sense. But those two phase one tasks here are so often ignored. And then they don't have the foundations to build the right solopreneurs or the consultancy journey. And I think about this because it means a lot of people aren't serving the right niche. And they tend to do one of two things. One is they don't make a choice. They think if they make a choice, I'm going to serve this niche or banking, or I'm going to serve pharmaceuticals, they think they're shutting down all the other doors. But by not
Mm,
making a decision, it means they're not walking through any door. And so the great thing about this is that it's reversible. If you explore a niche and it doesn't work out, you can just come back and explore another one. But you've got to commit to something. And the best way of doing that and picking the right niche for you is beginning with what past work do you have? What existing connections do you have? What credibility do you have? Are you satisfied working in that niche? What's the level of competition? And then you can use a simple framework or adapt this for yourself, but really decide, okay, what are the options? What the niches and the sub niches or niches or whatever way you want to say it that we're going to serve,
mm,
and then we can just go through it. And as I tell the people that I do coaching with for consultants, it's not always about getting it right first time. The odds on you getting everything right first time are quite slim. But the odds of you getting it right over time, if you commit to the process and the practice, that's going to be absolutely huge. And so once you know this, everything else becomes a lot easier. Like if we get the foundations right, I can't stress this enough, everything else becomes a lot easier. So
mm,
then you know, okay, which sectors we're going to solve. Then you can research them and find out what problems do they have, what the six-figure problems that they're struggling with, and that tells you everything. This is what you build your whole promotion on. What content you're going to create, what services you're going to offer, everything else. And then you can start thinking around, okay, what's the unique approach? What's the method that you're going to use? But really, the key is just doing the research in the first place. Because once you know what sectors you're going to solve, once you know the problem you're going to solve, everything else becomes so much easier. Like, I really can't stress this enough. And so many people don't make a choice. They think that they're going to shut down the other doors, and you're not. Once you make a decision, honestly, it's a relief. Like with everyone I've worked with, it's a relief when they made that decision because then they can fully commit to it. They can attend the right kinds of events, they can meet the right kinds of people, they can read the right kinds of materials. And then the next case is okay, I've got my niche, I know what problem I'm trying to solve for them. And then it's how am I going to solve it? And the best thing to do here is if you research your audience, you research who solved that problem in the past, how they solved it, what's the best way that they solved it. Then you have a great idea of what your positioning is going to be, and then what your messaging is going to be. And I think for consultants, so maybe for solopreneurs especially, they're not always clear about how they're going to help their clients. So one of the things that we often use is a framework that's just like this. This is more for consultants and solopreneurs, but there's fundamental things that whatever you're doing, you can help clients with. One is
mm,
deciding what to do. Two is knowing how to do it. Three, building their ability to do it. Four, doing it better. Five, avoiding mistakes, showing results. And I guess for solopreneurs, it'd be doing the work, right? I think a lot of your audience actually does the work on behalf of clients, so I'd add that. But once you know which of these things you're doing, again, it tells you which decision maker you need to reach out to. And then once you have this, if we go even further, it becomes easy to understand what kind of pricing or options that you should go for with clients. Because this varies tremendously and it depends on how unique you are, how much trust you have, and what your audience is. For consultants, I think the pricing and the tiers are probably a bit higher than solopreneurs, but it's good to have an understanding of what the options are. So if you're a consultant, for example, I would say there's general tiers that you can think about when you're deciding what to or what to price as your services. I don't tend to believe in an hourly rate myself, but if it works for you, that's great. But I would generally say think about which tier you're in because everything else has to align. For example, there's lots of advice out there that you should raise your rates. This is something we hear all the time. You have to raise your rates. And it seems like good advice, but you can't just raise your rates and think your clients are going to pay it. Like, why would they? Raising your rates also means you have to raise the quality of what you do. Like a restaurant can't raise its prices without also improving the menu, the staff, the layout, the food, everything else. It all comes together. And so you have to decide which tier you're in and make sure that everything else aligns. And it's totally okay to do like the low end of this market, the turnkey projects that you can do quite quickly and do a lot of them. That's great. You need an automated system to make that work. But it's also great if you want to move up this ladder a little too. For me, I really like that 25 to 50K space. I think that's where we get a lot of our work. And then occasionally in the 50 to 100K space, and then occasionally 100K plus, but that's relatively rare. But again, it's a different kind of service and approach and everything else. But if I were to go back to the question, which is what do consultants do wrong? It's just not getting the foundations right. Because if you get the basics right, like in terms of the niche, the services, the research, and the pricing, everything else becomes easier. And I think a lot of consultants don't do that well.
Yeah.
So yeah, get the
I
basics right.
absolutely, absolutely agree with you. I think it's great that you said that. And one thing I particularly, again, want to flag is that I feel like some solopreneurs and entrepreneurs, of course, approach, as you said, research with the idea of trying to make the research in a way that fits what they want to offer. But I also think it's about confidence. It's about what they think that they could offer, and if they find that their ideal client or the demand in their market, it's from people, as you said, from people who already have communities, for example, in your case, and want to do them better. Some people would sort of pull back and say, oh, but can I really help them if they're already doing it, if they're already investing in it, right? It's also a matter of confidence. But one thing you said there that really stuck with me was that you can do research about that too. You don't have to come in swinging for the fences and saying, oh, I can 100% help this client. But you also don't have to step back and say, oh, if that's what people want, then I cannot deliver it or I don't have the capacity. Right? Because if there's demand there and you found an opportunity, you can absolutely step up to answer that and to take advantage of that opportunity. So this was absolutely a great thing to say to all solopreneurs and entrepreneurs, I think. Now, I want to remind to everyone, because I know that Richard shared a lot there, that there will be a recording of this. So if you want to go through all his frameworks again and his tables and everything that he's created, which is, I feel like, brilliant. It was great at just visualizing what you're talking about. You'll be able to do this. Now, as you know, Richard, I'm a fan of deep work over popular work, and I believe we need more people, specifically in the solopreneurship space, who talk about long-term sustainable success strategy, rather than sort of, oh, make $1 million this month, which is so popular. And one of your concepts, particularly, I found super interesting. And I wanted to ask you to tell us a little bit about that. And it was the maturity model. And specifically, one of the reasons that I wanted to talk about it is that so many people use this fast money, fast success
Mm.
approach to selling their programs, and then flaunting testimonials from people who took their strategies, took their tactics, and actually succeeded. And you can absolutely succeed using someone's tactics, but you can only do it if you're in the right stage, I feel like, in the maturity model, which is why I think it's so important. I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think it ties into like a question I often get from people in my space, but elsewhere as well, but particularly my space, which is someone will become a consultant. They'll ask me, "What do you charge?" And I can give an answer, and my fees are pretty public anyway. But what I charge shouldn't be what you charge. You know, if I'm like 15 years in and got the track record and the proof, you don't want to be competing against me unless you also are at the same level, then great, let's have that great competition. But like you've got to find the right niche and the right pricing that makes sense to you and for who you're with. And I think the biggest challenge for a lot of consultants and solopreneurs is an unwillingness to invest in the career of what you do. And so people always want the quick success and they're not willing to get better over time. And so for me, if you're a consultant, and I think a lot of this will apply to solopreneurs as well, which is don't try to be excellent at everything on day one because that's just going to drive you crazy and you're going to be targeting the kinds of clients that you're probably not going to win. So just go on the journey. Begin at the emerging level, whether you're a solopreneur or consultant, and begin with the basics. Like once you have the basics in place, then you can try and improve one thing each month or each quarter, and gradually you'll get better and better. And I think when you first get started, if you've got no track record, if you can't prove how great you are, you don't want to be competing for the top tier clients. Yeah, that will happen. And honestly, it can happen if you've got a great relationship with one company. It's not impossible. But if you don't have that huge audience of people that trust you already, then embrace the process and approach it with a degree of ferocity, which is get started. You know, first get started because a lot of people don't, and then never rest. Like continually improve. So you can always get more expertise. What you're saying before is like a lot of people don't want to change what they're doing. I think that's such a shame. The harder it is to acquire the expertise to do something, the more people are going to pay for it. And so we've gotten a lot of work over the years by analyzing the data of communities and measuring the ROI. And that began when I did a course on that. I have no background in statistics. I didn't know anything about it, but I spent around 8 or 9 months just like taking courses on it and really having a familiarity where I think one of our first clients was Facebook. And I mean, that was luck. But over the years, I've had several clients that are really top tier, and we got a reputation for like taking a very data-driven approach to how we build a community. So you want to be able to combine different levels of expertise and things like that together to create a unique offering that you have. But go through the journey, right? Begin at the emerging level and then just improve each time around. So once you have the right expertise, then you can gradually get more knowledge. You can learn more about the problems. You can start doing your own research projects as well, and then specialize in the most expensive problems that organizations face. Same with your website. Most consultants will begin with a brochure style site, which is it's not great, but it gets you going, right? But once you have a couple of clients, then you want to be having like the right logos on there. You want to have the testimonials. It blows my mind how many times I visit the websites of my subscribers, which is what I do quite often, to be honest. And I find even the website doesn't exist, or there's no proof. There's absolutely zero proof of what they can do. No testimonials, no videos, nothing. And then over time, you might develop a resource-rich site. You might have special branding. You might be the kind of person who gets invited to speak at events. And it's the same process with each of these. You gradually begin with something that's ad hoc and just gets you going, but then you've got to improve and you've got to commit to improving. If you're not growing, if you're stuck at the five-figure level or the four-figure level, have you actually tried to improve or you just keep doing the same thing? And most people I've spoken to just keep doing the same thing and you're expecting better results, etc. But the more you begin applying these kind of things, the better results you have. And if you want to be an industry leading consultant, then you've got to really work on improving, drop the ego, which trust me is the hardest thing to do, and recognize just how much more there is to learn. And that's where you get like the kind of success that you want to get.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask you something specifically for the solopreneurs in the audience. I noticed a lot of people have companies, and then some of them mentioned that they are on their own. Um, do you think that you need to have a company to be in the industry leading consultant space, or do you think that a solopreneur could be a part of this space?
Uh, I think the terminology is important there, right? Like a
Mm,
company as in multiple staff or company as a registered
mhm,
entity that's your own. I think
mhm,
everyone that's offering services to clients should have a corporate company. And
mm,
that's just because there's a liability shield that protects you where if anything goes wrong, no company can come after your personal assets, just what's in the business.
Mm,
And you also, a lot of companies just won't work with solo folks. So I think that's critical. I think what
mm,
you're talking about is having multiple employees, right?
mhm,
Um, yeah, I think if we were to think about the pricing tier again, I'll go back a couple of slides.
mhm,
I think if you want to go above 50K, you increasingly need a team.
mhm,
Not always, but like you increasingly need a team of people because companies that are going to spend 100K, they want a team plus. They want
mm,
a manager. They want like multiple streams of work happening at the same time, diverse experience and expertise, and also not a
mm,
single point of failure. What I
mhm,
found quite consistently, it's very hard to earn money above a certain level just being me because no matter how great I say I am, someone that's going to be like, he might be good, but there's 10 of us. It doesn't really it's hard to win, especially when it's a request for proposal as well.
mm,
But that said, I don't think you need a team to be an industry leading consultant to get like certain tier projects you do, but all these
mm,
things that you see on your right, you except for with the exception of hiring stuff, you don't
mm.
need a team. You can do that yourself, but it takes years. Like it takes years to get there, but you will get there. Like if you commit to the process and you constantly refine what you're doing and you're learning and you're practicing, you will definitely get to this level.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thank you for saying that. There are a few reasons I asked you this question is because one of the things is that solopreneurship is about consciously and intentionally limiting growth in a way in exchange for other things, right? In exchange for focusing on the work, not managing a team, for example, or working with smaller businesses if that's what you want to do, because for some of us, it is what we want to do. But then at the same time, you need to be aware of what you want and where you're going. And if you want to use solopreneurship as a stepping stone to building a business and starting a company, you should absolutely do that. And then you should build a company when you are ready to do so. And while you're a solopreneur, you should embrace this, right? So no need to rush into anything, and at the same time, no need to. And I know you've been talking about this too, and I've had these conversations. Some people are worried about approaching big clients as solopreneurs, and they would act as if they're a company. And I think this is something that can only hurt you rather than help you. So it's sort of act your size and act your level, and you can still get amazing opportunities. And then if you think it's time to grow, then make the bold decision rather than pretend, because you can actually sort of get yourself in trouble, even if you manage to deceive, let's call it, the company or the client. Eventually, their expectations just won't match up to your reality and your capacity. So, what do
Can
you
I
have to say about that?
Yeah, that's another post I wrote. I think I called it Own Your Solo Status. Yeah,
Okay.
Own Your Solo Status, which covers exactly that. Like, don't pretend to be something you're not because you'll lose the trust of the client. Like, there's a
Mm,
lot of like people that are saying, like, we do this, we do that when it's just them, or they say that they're a group. And I personally don't like it. No offense, if it's working for
mhm,
anyone here, that's great. I think if you're a solo consultant, then own that, own your story. You can
mm,
be more nimble than anyone else. You can be more responsive. Like you've got to tell the right story. Like when someone hires you, they're not getting a team of junior staff that are going to do the work. They're getting you, the expert that someone has been following all this time, someone
mm,
that's actually going to do the work and not hand you off to someone else. Like use being solo as a weapon to be more flexible, quicker, more nimble, more adaptable. Use it as an opportunity. And when we talk about growth, I'm not talking about just company growth or revenue growth. Both of those things can be good. This is as much personal growth as anything else. Like if
mm,
people say, "Hey, I'm at the elite level here, and I'm happy," fine, just stick there. You could. That's great. But I think growth can be personal growth and constantly getting better. For me, that brings me a lot of joy. I feel like I'm getting better, but it doesn't always have to mean that the revenue goes up and up. Like that doesn't always have to happen.
mm,
And I think one of the hardest things about being a solopreneur or consultant or working for yourself is if you're willing to accept the risk of earning nothing, there's no cap on what you can earn. Like it's an infinite world out there. And so there's always a temptation to work more and work more and work more. And I definitely used to do that. In my early years, I was working like crazy. And then at some point, you've got to find peace. You have to make your peace with money. And then that's when you can find like contentment and satisfaction and all the things that we probably won't go into in this session. But I think at
Yeah.
some point you have to like make your peace with money and where you're at and decide, okay, is it worth me improving here or not? Because for some people, it might not be.
Yeah. Okay. So I see here that someone has asked the question that was actually on my list too. The next question that I wanted to ask you is about how can solopreneurs or consultants or entrepreneurs that are on this call actually attract more and or better clients? Because this all sounds great, but it also requires a lot of effort, right? And time and energy and maybe money to build these things, a good website, a good profile, and etc. So and skill too. So how can a solopreneur take all this and really use it to get clients?
Yeah, I think ultimately, if you want to like grow your practice, you need better clients. I mean, better might not be the right term, but clients that have like the funds and are willing to invest more in what you do. And I think there's a lots of mistakes, but the first thing I would say is, are you sure you want to go there? Like like I said before, there's different tiers, and when you get into different tiers, there's different skill sets. Like once you're at the 25K plus level, that's you're very often not just selling to one person, you're selling to a team. You like to have more competition. There might be a request for proposal. You have to learn how to negotiate with the procurement folks as well as the exact contact you're dealing with. You have to know how to write a proposal that's compelling. So it's a different kind of work, but I do think for a lot of people, it's a journey that's worth going on. And I think the worst thing that you can do is use any lead gen system that's like this. Like honestly, I get so many like the ones on the left, the one on the left you see here, I get so many messages that are like this, that are automated spam. And even just recently, I was trying to persuade a coaching client, like, don't do this. Like, don't automate your outbound messages. Like, you are going to lose the trust of everyone you want to engage with. And I know all these folks will say they're doing amazing. They're just not. Like, honestly, imagine sending this to someone at Microsoft and thinking they're going to say yes. And if you're not sure, wonder if you've ever bought anything from an automated message that you've received. And the answer for almost all of us is no. So why do you think anyone else will? And also think for business, they have systems they go through. Like businesses often have steps they have to go through to hire someone. And yeah, isn't going to work. What you want is to be on the right hand side of this. You know, you want messages that are like this. It's probably the most perfect message I've ever received in my life because you notice that first they want me, specifically me. And I don't mean it in like a bragging way. It's like the way you want to get to. They want specifically me. They highlight what their budget is right at the beginning. They highlight why they want me so I know exactly what to do. And then they want to introduce me to the senior team as well. And so these kinds of messages are where you want to get to. And all that comes through finding the right ways of attracting the right kinds of client. The first thing I would say here is to find which method of attracting clients you're going to use. A lot of people jump from one to one. Like they'll do a tiny bit of content marketing, and then they'll attend an event. They might try some ads, and they never commit to one specific thing, so they never get good at it. Even someone recently I know was going to post a LinkedIn post, and I'm asking, okay, what's your goal with this? Does it make sense to do just a one-off post, or do you want a series of videos? Like, what is your goal, and how does that fit into where you want to be? And all of these methods, they have very big pros and very big cons. And so you've got to figure out which one are you most comfortable with, because it's something you're going to be doing for a long time. Like I think the most common is content marketing, which you create content and clients are going to read that content and hire you. The problem with that is that it's become insanely competitive and it's going to become even more competitive. It doesn't rank in search engines anymore. So it's more of a challenge. Search engine marketing, this is probably a little bit out of date now with how search is going. But generally, where you find out what terms people are searching for, and then you create resources specifically for that. So for me, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out before people build a community, like for a business, what do they search for? And they were searching for what platforms to use, they were searching for examples, and they were searching for the return on investment. So we created these mammoth resources, which maybe someone can share in chat for each of these things. And these became very de facto resources, and we got a lot of clients from that. Advertising and sponsorships are great if you have the money. Like recently, I've been doing social ads for the newsletter. I think it's probably grown to 13,000 from 3,000 in a couple of months, mostly through ads. So it's the most direct route, but it's also the most expensive. And a lot of people don't consider this, but I think more and more you should do. I think sometimes you just need the boost because everything else is becoming quite competitive. Programs are great, but so few people use them at all. Like even asking for referrals, most people don't do it. Setting a bounty for referrals, most people don't do it. Vendor programs work too. Like most vendors in any sector, especially for consultants, will have programs. And if you figure out where they are, you can join them, and they often refer leads directly to you. Maybe the downside of this is that you're a bit tied to the vendor.
Mm.
Networking is another one that doesn't come up anywhere near as much as it should. But you need very strong relationship skills to do it. You need to be able to either host your own events, attend the events, collaborate with people like what we're doing now, right? Like we're collaborating and it's fun, it's enjoyable, but I assume we both want to grow our audiences as a result. And I think there's lots of opportunities for that to happen. And then I think the one that's probably best today is account-based marketing, where you figure out the handful of companies you want to work with. You identify the key accounts that who's going to be responsible there for what you want to do, and you network with them. You create content that's specifically for them. You build relationships with them. Like I spent a year getting Microsoft as a client, and that was by reviewing their community, getting introductions, getting to know their team, hosting a joint webinar like with them. I've even got a webinar with Microsoft next week as well.
Mm.
So you got to pick a method and stick with it. I think that's one of the most important things. A couple of the you should spend like 50% of your time on this. Because I think a lot of people don't spend anywhere near enough time on the marketing side. And then the sales side, I think is important. I won't spend too much time on this, but you need a list. Even today, you need a following, you need a list of people that are going to be receptive to what you offer. And then once you're able to offer something of value, then you can identify the barriers that they have. You can present options for solving them, create a proposal, and then solicit a decision. But go through each stage of the journey. Even if you don't want to wait for people to contact you, never send a cold message. Always work with people that are on your mailing list or your audience today. And then you just go through the journey. Like when you're in the sales process, for example, the first thing you have to do is align on what their needs and what their outcomes are. Then you get alignment on the cost, which I'll talk about in a second. And then you make sure you've engaged all the key stakeholders. And then you have to develop a unique. This is how you get like top tier clients. Like at the lower level, this is probably not as important. But then you have to make sure that you've got your unique story and approach, you've got your proposal done. And then one sneaky thing I've learned here that works really well is before you send a proposal, invite your client to attend a review of your draft proposal. And what happens is your client will go through it and give you feedback on that proposal to make sure it's entirely aligned with what other people that they're working with need. And this has been one of the best tips that I've seen. And then you get a decision. What else? Negotiation. If you don't want to use the pricing tiers I mentioned before, my favorite thing to do is give people rough ranges to begin with. So if you go to the Feedby site and the contact page, maybe someone can put in the link, what you'll see is that we list our broad fees on the website itself. It ranges from this to this, and it's a really huge range. I think this is actually the amount that we list on our site. So when we're at the discovery phase, I want to make sure the client at least has 15K, because otherwise they're probably not the right fit for the tier of clients we're going after. And I put the upper range in there as well, so they don't anchor to the lowest price that we offer. So I think that range really helps. And it also says, hey, if you're looking for like $500,000 project, we're not for you. Like you could go to Accenture or McKinsey or someone like that. We're not for you. And then as you learn more about the client with each call, you narrow the range, you check they're on board, you agree the solutions, you narrow the range, and then finally you create a proposal with different options. I think a couple of other things that really help with better clients is one, learning how to properly package what you sell.
Mm.
One of the common mistakes is for a consultant to sell themselves, like, hire me, I'm amazing. And that can work, but you're selling solutions to the problems that they have. So, what are the solutions that you're selling? Think of yourself as the brand and your solutions as the products. Because when you become a consultant, you're not becoming a consultant, you're starting a business and you need a product and customers for that. And then name your services to reflect what clients actually want, as you see here. I mean, 3 month team training package is okay, but I think we can agree the one on the right is a lot stronger. Like management to leadership, it just um, uh, amplifies rather what we're trying to achieve. And then try to avoid adjectives and superlatives. I think, no offense to the Americans on the call, but you folks have to stop doing this. Like, you don't have to say you're the best or the world leading or seamless. Like, it just sounds a bit fake. You can be really honest and describe exactly what the benefit is without being an late night TV commercial or infomercial. And then something else would help was creating multiple options for clients. Yes, you can do like gold, silver, bronze, but I like to position the options where it's very clear what the differences are between them. Like I used to use the Alan Weiss thing where it was like advisory, then consultative and collaborative. And clients would always respond and be like, I don't know what the difference between these things are. So now if you look at the options here, you can very clearly see like, oh, it's fully outsourced, oh, this is collaborative. And think about where on this chart it's going to be. Like we know that clients want different things. Some clients want to be very involved. Some want the hands-off approach. They want to just give you it and let go. Some people want something done fast. Some people want something that's comprehensive. And so you can think about these kind of axes when you're thinking about what kind of products you're going to use. But I found getting this really helps. And then I have two more quick things I'll cover. This is more the advanced level. Things that I found work incredibly well for us, and your mileage with this might vary entirely. One, have research that you do. Not because what you'll notice that research gets referred and passed around a lot. If you're the one doing the research, that's a huge win. And research isn't that expensive to do. You can get survey responses for like 1 or 2 grand to do a big survey. You can come up with really interesting research that'll get you featured everywhere. And this is very important if you want to be in chatbots in the future. Another thing was coin memorable terms. Have a way of describing something that other people would talk about. We did a community everywhere in our space. I don't know if I came up with it or if I stole it from somewhere, quite honestly. But I think maybe I helped popularize the term in my space. And like community architect, like find a unique way of describing something that makes people want to share the term as well. Like vibe coding is a term, minimum viable product is a term. And you can very quickly coin a term that spreads quite easily. Build status definitely really helps. It sounds like an easy thing to do, but do the hard things. Like everyone is focused on opinion-based articles on social media. You don't have to do a lot of that. You can be publishing books, speaking at events, case studies, testimonials, we'll talk about in a second, and then learn to sell. I think I covered the selling part already. And a final thing I would cover about, actually, there's another thing after this, but think about how you expand if you want to expand. Like, let's say you feel like you've gone as far as you can in the niche and the services you offer. Don't make a huge jump to something completely different. Think about what's adjacent. Are you going to go broader within that current niche? Or are you going to go up the value chain? If you're doing recruitment consulting for tech B2B startups, or you can go to a similar niche for finance startups, for pharmaceutical startups, or you can go to tech companies or Fortune 500. And likewise, if you're doing recruitment consulting for tech startups, well, you can also do consulting on employee onboarding or management consultancy. So you can go up or down this journey. But think about how you're going to expand and just begin going from one adjacent level to the next. Oh, and just something that I think is really important if you want better clients, and I think that everyone should be doing no matter what you're doing, is investing in proof. I'm losing my voice a little. And by investing in proof, I mean really sharing case studies that show exactly what you did, what the results were. Like a lot of people don't promote their successes enough. Even if you have to anonymize it, it's not ideal. But highlighting exact, like this one chart has got us so many clients because it's so specific. What we did, what the results were. In hindsight, I would have gone back and improved the design a lot. But everyone loves this because they can see exactly what the results were. And having a time graph like this really helps. Putting testimonials in the proposal helps. So we have a whole testimonial page of clients that we've worked with, the results that we got for those clients. And all of these are clickable. This is like a real proposal. This is from a real proposal that we use. And a client can click on any one of these, it'll load up the video. And again, that's a really, really big win to have. Anyway, I've been rambling for a long time and I think we're getting a bit short on time. So let me hand it back to you.
You know, I didn't want to interrupt at all. You said a lot of very helpful things. I do want to flag a few of them specifically for solopreneurs, but also for anyone who wants a slightly different example. And one is what you said about pricing first and putting your pricing on the website or just being upfront about it. This is something that I have been saying to my subscribers for months, and I find that a lot of them are very surprised at this because typical sales calls, and I have a sales background, so typical sales
Mm,
calls are they teach you that whoever says the price first is the loser of the conversation because now you have an anchor and the other person can actually use that to get a discount or bargain or whatever. And this is not true, and especially if you're a solopreneur or a small business owner, because think about how many clients can you realistically handle. The ABC, the always be closing rule, does not apply to you. You do not need to always be closing. You need to be closing the right clients at the right conditions for you. So price first is actually something that as a copywriter, I've always done. Well, price range, obviously, in the beginning before booking a call with anyone. I do not do calls before confirming the price range fits because other than that, you're just wasting your time and your potential client's time, right? Now, this is something that is important, I think, for anyone who's doing service work as a solopreneur. Don't be afraid to say your prices. Another thing, what's the solution versus personal branding? Because I think personal branding is such a wild topic, and especially lately, and I know that a lot of people already understood that follow your passion is not really a business strategy. And personal branding is while there are some personal qualities and skills and specific background that you have that may be useful and interesting to a certain niche or a certain type of client, and you should absolutely use that, but do not focus on yourself, focus on the solutions you offer, focus on the client. You're supposed to be the helpful sidekick. Your client is the superhero. So this is important in marketing, even though we had a lot of fun with what you said, Richard, in the chat about
I
superlatives
can
and
see.
superheroes, etc. But that is the situation. One great example, because you mentioned Seth Godin earlier, of thinking of terms and how to put things differently is the purple cow example, which I always, again, give to people. Like, he could have said anything. He could have said, be unique. He could have said, do interesting marketing or whatever. And then he wrote this book that was named Purple Cow. And it's a term that everyone knows and everyone instantly understand. So don't be afraid to be even weird because people are not logical. And there was actually a guy, and I can't remember the name now, a psychologist that won a Nobel Prize proving how absolutely illogical we are in our purchasing decisions and a lot of the things that we do. So don't be afraid to come up with interesting, strange, memorable things to illustrate what you do, as long as you're focusing on the solution and not just doing it to sound cool. So that's I just wanted to add this. Anything else you want to add before we move to questions?
I mean, I'll quickly flag on sales because I think we grew up with sales and watching movies like Boiler Room or what's the ABCD one called? No, the ABC one
Always be
with
closing?
Kevin.
Or
Yeah,
is
what's
it
the Kevin Spacey one called? Was it Kevin Spacey? No,
I
it was
can
Al Pacino, wasn't it?
I
Yeah,
can
Len Gary Ross. Yeah, we got with that and
okay.
like Wolf of Wall Street, and it's like you're on the phone and you're supposed to
Mm.
give. You might say your price, and then you hold your breath, and that's it's freaking ridiculous. Like it. you're not leaving money on the table. Your goal isn't to gouge your client for as much money as possible. Like what you want to do is have a situation where you discuss and you zero in. I think I had a slide it somewhere where you let
Mm,
me just go back to the slide where you zero in and like there's never an adversarial part of this process. Your goal in negotiation is one to avoid wasting time on clients that can't afford you. And that's fine. And you can do it in a very friendly way. It's a lot more difficult when there's sticker shock. When you write a proposal, they're like, "Oh, I thought that was it was going to be much less." Because if you've written the full proposal, you've just wasted everyone's time. So you want to
mm,
go through the journey together, right? And be like, okay, this is a broad range, and then you narrow it. And it doesn't have to be adversarial at all. Like, yes, there is something to the idea you can undersell yourself, but honestly, if you know what your products are, you know where the competition is, you shouldn't really have this. But yeah, that's what I want
mm.
to add. We
Yeah,
can move on.
absolutely. Before we actually go through some questions, can you tell me more about, because I know you're launching this, you're doing this program now where you're helping people build their consulting practices. I would love to know more about that, as I'm sure some of our listeners would too. So please tell us more about that.
I mean, you say that as I'm reading the chat where someone says, "I'm so glad
Mm.
that you haven't been pitching us at all," and now I'm like, "Well, now I don't want to pitch." But I'll do it
No,
quick just because everyone's here.
guys, if when you have something great, you have to share it. As you saw, this is 40,
I'll
54
do it in
minutes
like
now of solid, solid stuff.
I'll do it in like a
Go
minute.
ahead.
But I think what you've seen here is that we do a lot of coaching and there's courses that we have. So if you're interested, then reach out to me because honestly, we've worked with a lot of people to help them get their first clients or expand their business. But it's a 3 month program. You can find more on the website. Someone can put the link. You want the pitch? I'm going to take a screenshot of that. All right, folks. If you think you can resist my pitch, then listen carefully. This is a
Go
once
for
in a
it.
lifetime. No, but seriously, like I love working with people to help them get their first clients, expand their practice. So there's a 3 month coaching program that we have in place. And also, if you're interested, if you think this material has helped and you want to learn more, then just drop me a line, richard@richardmillington.com, or just by email or LinkedIn, whichever channel works for you. And I'll be more than happy. Yeah, we're more than happy to work with you. But that's it. That's the end of the pitch.
Yeah, that's it's short pitch, and I love this. I absolutely love this because first of all, we gave so much va value, and especially you, Richard, you were great. And second of all, I know that there are people who want the done with you sort of service because they want to get there faster. They've tried a lot of things. They want someone who has done it who will help them. So thank you for that. We have a couple of questions here, so I'm just gonna read them. We have one from Zach Bruno, and he says, I'm unclear as to how to share what financial space you play in without putting total costs up front, which multiple people have told me not to do. I think we kind
So
of talked about this in the range, but go ahead, Richard.
yes, I would put the range up. Let me see if I
Mm,
can share it. Like, so what we have here is like the range. Um,
mm,
so on the contact page, before anyone will reach out to us, we just have it here. And what I found when I put this up front is that we get far fewer queries than what we used to, but the quality is far higher. And so it means I'm spending way less time reaching out to people individually and going down the journey, then finding out they don't have a budget. So I like being very clear, like who we want to work with or not. And like you could do the same. This might work for you, this might not work for you. But I think when you're up front, you find that yeah, when you're more upfront, you just find that you're working with better people down, not better, but people that are better fit
mm.
for you down the pipeline itself. And even if you don't want to put it on the web page, I would list it on the first call, just to let you know our range is this, this, this. Is that in the right ballpark for you? Yeah. So hopefully that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Okay. Yep. That's great. I hope that was helpful, Zach. And Marcelo Maldonado, I'm sorry again if I'm not pronouncing this right. What advice do you have for someone interested in transitioning to consulting from a full-time corporate job? How do we get started without leaving our job and our financial safety?
Yeah, that's a challenge, but I also think that's the best way to do it. I think the best thing that you can do is start building your personal brand, and start building an audience, sharing useful advice. You can do all the steps about actually scaling the client to this point. And so I would make sure that you spend a lot of time connecting with people in the space, understanding what problems they have, understanding how to solve them. And also, I think what tends to happen is that people very senior in an organization leave to become a consultant. And then they think everything that worked at their last place is going to work at every other client. And you've got to figure out what were the unique circumstances where it only worked here compared to what it's going to work elsewhere. But I would really start building a mailing list, honestly. Like build a mailing list, share your advice, expertise, take whichever of the processes work for you. Um, yeah, and grow slowly from there.
Okay, and can I just ask a follow-up question on that one? Because I've heard people tell me that they're worried that their current employer will see what they're doing. Do you have any way, do we maybe use platforms that aren't LinkedIn, or what would you say to that concern?
For me, it's easier to say it's not working at the organization, right? But
Mm,
I feel this should fall under the advocacy for the organization. Like, okay, if you're not allowed to do it, if you're not allowed to share anything online, then fine, don't do it. But that's very rare. Like, almost everyone is allowed to share ideas on LinkedIn. They're allowed to post on LinkedIn. They're allowed to collect names and email addresses from sharing that
mm,
expertise. What I would never do is lie. Like, you don't have to be like, hey, I'm going to leave you and I'm going to become a consultant and I'm doing this. But I would always suggest being honest because if you're caught in a lie, that damages your reputation a lot. Like when someone
mm.
has lied, yeah, that
Yeah.
gets passed around a lot. But I think you can just see what other people are doing in LinkedIn and work for corporations, see what your employee advocacy program is if you have one, and then just start
Mm.
sharing what you've learned, just being mindful of what you can and can't share.
Okay. We have a bit of a zinger from Sharon who says, "Where's the transparent pricing for the coaching program?"
I saw that and I put it in chat. Yes,
Oh, you
I forgot
did.
to mention the
Okay.
price, but you can
Transparent
find
pricing.
the link in chat.
Richard answered with a link. So anyone who's
It's
interested,
at the
just scroll
bottom.
down.
Yes.
Yeah, scroll down and find it. Oh, you are fast. So Victoria asks, you mentioned dropping ego, which I totally agree with. How do you square that with pitching yourself as the face of your consultancy, even when focusing on services?
Well, I think there's good ego and there's bad ego, right? There's the ego that comes from a place of confidence. Like I'm confident I can help big companies build their community. I'm confident I can do that. Then there's the ego that's the insecure side, which is I'm trying to protect myself by not admitting that actually, yeah, there's more I can learn. Like I've been doing this for 15 years and there's still so much more I can learn. There's so much more I'm learning from others. And so there's different kinds of ego. I don't even know if that's the right word, but there's different
Mm,
kinds of mentality you can take. So I think there's
mm,
confidence which grows over time, which is, yeah, I can help you. I can understand you. I can listen to you. I've got a track record of doing it. I'm willing to help. But for me, the thing I've struggled with and what I've gotten a lot better at over the years is being willing to admit, like, yes, I don't know everything there is to know. Like, and I don't pretend to with clients. Like, if a client asks me a question I don't know, I tell them I don't know, but I'll do this, and find the answer. I think over time, as we age, we
mm.
get more comfortable. Or most of us do. We get more comfortable just being like, oh, this is who I am, and I'm not going to pretend I'm something I'm not, and just come at it from a place of
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
better.
I completely agree. I completely agree with that. I think one is ego and the other one's confidence. And ego is trying to protect you. So when you feel like sort of you're on the defense a little bit, that's ego. And when you just feel like, oh, I can do this for you, then that's just confidence. And it kind of shows in how you okay, we're gonna take a few more questions, but I wanted to flag that we are at the 1 hour mark now, but we're gonna take a few more questions. Ashraf says you've both touched on how content marketing is very saturated and slightly wild west right now. Totally. Whilst I can appreciate that, and this shouldn't be your sole marketing funnel, how else would you suggest building authority in your niche?
Yeah, I think you don't have to be the most prolific content creator to thrive in any niche. For example, in mine, until very recently, there was a lady called Erica Cool who didn't really publish anything at all. But
Mm,
because she's worked at Salesforce and she's so connected there, she had no problem getting clients ever. There's another guy, Brian Oblinger, who used to work at one of the major technology vendors, so had a lot of like existing contacts in that space. And so publishing content is the one we think we have to do, but it's not the easiest one. It's not the most effective one. It's just the one that we see the most of because we go online and see all this content all the time. And so I gave you, I think, 6 options. I would say if content isn't working for you, and it doesn't have to, some people just aren't meant to be like promoting in that way, then find something that does, whether that's sponsorship, whether that's networking, whether that's referrals, whether that's search engine marketing. Find what works for you. And honestly, I found there's opportunities everywhere. Like just writing my first book was a game changer for me because I could attend events and give away like 1,500 copies of the book, which happened once.
Mm,
And so there's so many opportunities if you are willing to put the content side aside. I think content can work, but it's a lot harder than what it used to be. Or it feels a lot
mm.
harder anyway.
Yeah, I just this isn't a question, just a great comment that I wanted to read out is that another ego challenge you touched on is when the consultant believes the client should do things the way the consultant wants, right? You should do X, why
Yeah.
wouldn't you? Right. Whereas you always start as a beginner on the client's actual context. How much of that is true? Where is the line where you're like, this is what you got to do versus, oh, maybe this won't work in your industry?
I think the most important thing you can do when you work with any client, and I think I've written a post recently, like what you should do when you have your first client. Someone can put that
Mm,
in chat. I think the most critical thing is that you learn why they haven't already done it. Like,
mm,
because clients aren't dumb, and consultants, especially those that are new, think that a client is dumb if they haven't done something already. But
mm,
often the reason they haven't done it is that they don't have the resources for it, or they tried it and it didn't work, or there's some unique constraint they're facing. And so you can't propose any solution until you understand what their constraints are. And that
mm,
means, like some people saying here, a lot of calls. Like when we work with a client, we interview all the stakeholders, we find out what their constraints are. And so we really go into depth to understand what the constraints are and why they haven't already implemented the change that we want, and that will tell us
mm,
what we need to adapt, how we need to adapt. I think the worst thing you can do is propose the same solution to every client. And that's what they're scared about. Like clients want
mm.
to feel like you're really taking the time to learn who they are, and if you do that, you'll be a lot more successful. So I don't know if that answered the question. But that's how I think about it. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
do
I think that's
you
great.
generally have like some knowledge and expertise that's important from your background and your history, but you have to
Mm,
come out at it from a place of humbleness that there's probably a reason the client hasn't done it already. So they're going to tell you what the boundaries are, and then you're going to have to work within
mm.
that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Richard, and thank you to everyone who were with us live. I think this was a great session. You guys will get the recording. Oh, I think one question that I wanted to ask you is, will we be sharing the presentation? No, just the recording, I think.
I can
Do
share
you want to
both.
share the
Yeah, I'm
slides?
happy to
Okay, so
share.
we can share the slides too. So Richard is feeling generous. We'll be sharing the slides and the presentation for you guys to take whatever you need from it. And thank you so much again. I've had a blast, and we had a lot of great comments here. Thank you for a great session. And for anything else consultant related, if you want to build a practice, you know who to call now.
Awesome, and thank you
Okay.
so much to you as well. It's great to have a chance to chat and do this. It's been awesome, and the chat's been
Yeah.
incredible. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you too. Okay, bye guys. Have a great day, evening, morning, wherever you are.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.